ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। सर्वशास्त्राब्धि पीयूष सर्ववेदैक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांतरत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्ष्यक्षरायते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्याय श्रीकृष्णाय नमोस्तुमे। मदेक बंधो मत्संगिन मद्गुरो मन्महाधन बन्निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधुता दायीन अतिनीचोच्चतारक हानमुंच कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा रथकंठयोस्फुर। श्रीमद्भागवत महापुराणम की जय। Hare Krishna. Am I audible for all the online devotees?
Please, Prabhu.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So thank you very much for joining in our continuation of Bhakti Vaibhav. So all these devotees, even devotees from Kunja Bihari temple, all the devotees have joined for this particular unit. We are taking it common here as well as in Kunja Bihari. So thank you for joining. So we will continue our discussions. We will complete chapter 3 today, and then we will proceed to chapter 4. And the plan is to complete in this unit till at least till chapter 6. In case chapter 7 is begun, that is also good. But I have planned in a way that at least we can finish till chapter 6, because there was some reminder from last unit, which is chapter 3rd half and also chapter 4th. So we may not be able to cover chapter 7, but even if it is so, it's okay. 7 and 8 don't have much discussion, so we can finish it in next unit. What is going to take time in next unit is the chapter 9, Chatushloki, and also the 10. So If possible, we will try to begin chapter 7 in this unit. If not, till 6th also it's fine. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, like that. Okay. So in the next week, uh, because we have Ekadashi, right? One day is Ekadashi. So we will be losing one session on that. So in the next week only, for the remainder of session, we will extend. This week I am going to take only 2 hours session, but in next week we will extend that time so that we can compensate for the lost session. So this is how we do. Okay, okay. Okay, we can say no problem. We'll decide. Fine, but in this week, it's 2 hour sessions only. Hare Krishna. So we have, yeah. Okay, so we have seen till verse 11 of the 3rd chapter, which is pure devotional service. After going through chapter 1st and 2nd of the 2nd canto, in chapter 3rd, we know Srila Shukdev Goswami began by saying that, see, whatever you have asked me in this way, I have explained to you. I have explained to you the path which is taken by those who are mriyaman, those who are about to die. What they should be doing, I have spoken. So he spoke it in terms of Ashtanga Yoga also, by speaking about Krama Mukti, Sadhya Mukti. But primarily he spoke about devotional service as the path, as the highest path. So in that he compared it with Karma Kand, he compared with Ashtanga Yoga. But then his conclusion was in 2nd chapter towards the end, 2.32 onwards, 33 onwards, that na hyato anyah shiva pantha. There is basically even greater than these paths, the greatest path, the most auspicious path is of devotional service. So this is how he has answered the questions which are asked by Shukadev, which are asked by Parikshit, like that what is the duty of the dying man, and also what should be heard, what should not be heard, what should be remembered. So that is how in this chapter later, after this section, even Shaunak Rishi says that actually everything is answered already. So is that he asked something more additional? Did Parikshit ask something more? Because you will find in Bhagavatam, the answers are there, like they are specifically there, and there also complete Bhagavatam is also elaboration, right? Like the 6 questions by the sages also, they are answered in chapter 2nd and chapter 3rd, finished. So then Bhagavatam should end by chapter 3rd, right? But what is further spoken is then, again, complete Bhagavatam itself is answer to the questions, like that. So that is why in full elaboration, complete Bhagavatam will be answer to the questions. Like you speak about the Tasya Karmani Udarani. So you speak about the magnanimous acts of the Supreme Lord. That was one of the questions, right? Question 4th by the sages. So then he spoke about Srishti Leela and also about Krishna's activities. Both are included in that. So he spoke about Srishti Leela immediately in 3rd chapter, 3rd chapter and all. But the aspect of Krishna's Leelas that will be spoken much later. So there Vishwanath Chakravarti says that for any questions of the Bhagavatams, for most of the questions, the answers are there specific and they are there in throughout Bhagavatam also. That so even here, for that matter, Parikshit's questions have been specifically answered. What should not be heard? He spoke in the beginning only, Viparyaya. What should be heard? He spoke, Tasmat Bharat Sarvatma and all that. What is the duty of a dying man? So he spoke in terms of Grahat Pravrajito Dhiraha, if you consider Ashtanga Yoga as the opinion. But then, yeah, the path which is the highest is Bhakti, which is greater than that. So that also he spoke. He elaborated that in the 1st chapter. Then he elaborated it towards the 2nd chapter's end also, this way. So here in this particular chapter, he is speaking about he began with that, saying that this is how I have explained to you the what you have asked me about. Nrinam yan mriyamanana. But manishinam, but the most intelligent, their path, that is the path of bhakti. He says that. So in this way, then he explains to Parikshit about what is the goal or what is the bhajniya, what is the object of worship of those who are mandadhi, who are very less intelligent. So in that context, he has explained all this demigod worship. Uh, Manishis worship the Supreme Lord, but those who are not Manishis, whom do they worship? So they worship the demigods. This is how he explained the context of 2 to 7, the verses, Devata worship. But then he said that finally, actually, even if somebody is akama, sarvakama, or mokshakama, he should worship the Supreme Lord only by tivrena bhakti yogena. So we saw this verse. Why that should be done is said in the next verse actually. So in fact, verse 10 is very important to be understood in the light of verse 11. Etavan eva yajtam iha nishreyasodaya bhagavatyachalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangata. Why are you saying that go to Supreme Lord Vishnu only, whether you are Sarvakam, Mokshakam, or Akama? Why should we do that? Do demigods not satisfy the desires? Yes, they do satisfy the desires, but that is not the purpose of going to the demigods. The real purpose, Nishreyasa, is actually coming to bhakti only. By connecting them to the Vedas, by connecting them to the path of demigod worship, the real purpose is Bhagavati Achalo Bhava. So is that going to be accomplished by demigod worship? No, it's not going to be accomplished. They may get some purification, they may get some higher elevation and all that. But will bhakti be generated by deity worship, by demigod worship? It will not be. Unless and until somebody while doing that demigod worship comes in touch with association. That is what is the point of verse 11. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jiva Goswami, both of them say that this verse is, especially Jiva Goswami says, this verse is very important to understand Akamo Sarvakamo, verse 11, because this establishes that the real purpose of doing such an activity like demigod worship is actually to bring a soul finally to this Bhagavati Achalo Bhav, to this steadfast devotion towards the Supreme Lord, unflinching devotion to the Supreme Lord. So that is not going to be accomplished only by demigod worship. It will not happen. It will only happen if they get Bhagavata Sangha, if they get the association of devotees. So if they take to the path of Vedas, they worship demigods, then there is a great likelihood that they may come in touch with devotees. And by that, that real Nishreyas, the real benefit of all that demigod worship will be accomplished. Like that. Otherwise, if you just do demigod worship and get that particular benefit, it is anyway nashwar, it will be finished. So is that really a labh? That is his point, that way. So, etavan eva yajtam iha nishreyasodaya. That's why he's saying etavan eva. This only is the benefit of, all this worship of demigods. What benefit? Getting svarga? No. Bhagavati achalo bhavo. That one gets unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Lord. So is that going to come automatically by demigod worship? No. Yad bhagavat sangataha. It will come only by association of devotees. So that is why akama, sarvakama, or mokshakama, best is to take to the process of devotional service, because then only it will. That's the purpose basically for which all these paths have been given. So in this way, he is speaking about this aspect. So now after this, from text 12 onwards. So text 12, basically he will just say that, see, even the worship of Brahman, that is also supposed to lead one to bhakti only. Even those who are Brahman worshippers, they give up their Brahman worship and take to bhakti. So what to speak of demigod worship? That is the purpose with which he speaks, verse 12. And then the topic changes. in terms of Shaunaka's words to inspire Srila Sud Goswami to speak further. So that is the rest of the chapter from 13 to 25, like that. So in this series, this is the last verse now, text 12. We will see this. Jnanam yada pratinivritta gunorbi chakra matma prasada utayatra guneshva sangah kaivalya sammata pathastvatha bhakti yogah ko nirvrito harikathan suratim na kuryat.
Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted?
See, Srila Sridhar Swami says that this verse is saying, the last verse spoke about Bhagavat Sangataha, right? Bhakti, one comes to unflinching devotion by the association of devotees. So by that word which is Bhagavat Sangataha, the great attachment for Harikatha, which is the characteristic of Bhakti, is shown. So he says that this verse is glorifying that great attachment to Harikatha, which is the characteristic of devotional service. So he says that Bhagavad Sangata has brought up the topic of bhakti. So that bhakti is very important aspect, which is attachment for Harikatha. That is what is being glorified in this particular verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti gives a different theme of this particular verse. He says that this verse is saying that after one practices jnana, even beyond this demigod worship, when he practices jnana and he becomes free from the influence of the three modes and like that, then after that bhakti yoga comes. Atha bhakti yoga, here atha means anantaram, after that. It's like mad bhaktim labhate param, that particular verse from Bhagavad Gita, like that. So even jnana one practices, and by that he becomes completely detached and he becomes atma prasad, situated within his own self. But bhakti is higher than that also. So what to speak of karma kand and that demigod worship? That demigod worship is anyway, it is not a highest means in itself. So Vishwanath Chakravarti's point is that you are saying that by doing demigod worship, he should finally come to unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Lord. But how is that? If he has been worshipping a demigod all throughout life, and then you are saying that the purpose of that is to give up that demigod and rather be established in bhakti toward the Supreme Lord. So this doesn't make sense. Jo, whatever object of worship one has taken, one should stick to that, no? Like that. One should stick to that object of worship. But you are saying he has worshipped demigod, and the goal is what? That he should develop the devotion for Supreme Lord, like that. So how is that he is saying? So in that answer to that, this verse says, forget about demigod worship. Even with the path of jnana, even the path of jnana is supposed to lead one to the bhakti. That is what is the purpose of jnana. So what to speak of demigod worship? It is a very, Kaimutte is spoken. It is 100% a very, very petty goal of demigod worship. So that is what, from that angle, this is being spoken as per Vishwanath Chakravarti. So you can take any theme, which is Sridhar Swami's theme, that it's a plain glorification of bhakti, which has been brought in by Bhagavat Sangadha word, or you can say in this particular way. Okay. So jnanam yada apratinivrit gunormi chakra. The path of jnana is where the gunormi chakra, meaning the wheel or the cycle of this agitation of the modes, that becomes stopped. Nivrutta. The person becomes freed from the agitation of the modes. Atma prasad uta yatra guneshu sanga. Because he becomes completely detached from three modes of material nature. So he experiences Atma Prasad. He experiences that inner joy, Brahmananda. Kaivalya sammata pathaha tu atha bhakti yoga. So after this particular jnana accomplishment, it is said atha. So that atha is being translated as anantaram. So after one achieves this kind of goal by jnana, which is kaivalya sammata patha, which is the path of kaivalya, then comes bhakti yoga, atha bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is even superior to that. So ko nirvrito hari katha suratim nakurya. So who in this world will not be, we will not have, he will not have the rati, the attachment for hearing the glorification of Lord Hari. Meaning it is such an exalted goal. Forget about demigod worship. It is the goal which is higher than even jnana. So who in this world will not have attachment for that Harikatha, which is going to bring up this goal like that, which is the first item in Bhakti, Shravanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, like that. So that is what he is saying this way. Or if you say that this is talking about Bhakti Yoga itself, this verse. So then in Bhakti Yoga, we see that the agitation of three modes of material nature is gone and person is situated in Atma Prasad. He is situated in, the inner joy of Bhakti. And that is why this path is Kaivalya Sammata Pathaha. So Srila Jiva Goswami quotes one very nice verse from Shruti, which says that Kaivalya means Lord Narayan here. Kaivalya's meaning is Lord Narayana, because he only is like himself. Nobody else is like Lord Narayana. Kevala, wo ekmatra hai, asamordhva. So that's why he is known as Kaivalya. So just a minute. So Srila Jiva Goswami says this particular point. Paravaranam param aste kaivalya sanyatah. He is quoting this. Paravaranam param aste kaivalya sanyatah. So the one who is param, who is greater than all the para, avara, all the other demigods and Brahma and all of them, that person is known as Kaivalya. So that's why Kaivalya Sammata Patha, meaning that this particular path is actually one approved by Lord Narayan himself. That is the meaning of Kaivalya. Usually Kaivalya is translated, or Kaivalya is seen as a path of Brahman realization. That is a very famous understanding of Kaivalya. But he is telling that that is not the monopoly of the Kaivalya words. Monopoly is not always to take that Kaivalya means Brahmananda or like that. No. Kevala Bhakti. So that is also Kaivalya. Where Lord is the only goal, that is also Kaivalya. Like that. So Kaivalya Sammata Patha, that path which is approved by Lord Narayan himself, is the path of Bhakti Yoga. So who in this world will not take delight in the Harikatha? And this is what he says. So Srila Prabhupada also has taken this meaning in his purport. See, he says in this first para, in this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayano Deva Paravaranam Paramaste Kaivalya Sanyata, and establishes that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya. And the means which enables one to approach the Lord, that which helps one to achieve the Kaivalya, is known as Kaivalya Pantha, which is Kaivalya Path. So which is Bhakti. This Kaivalya Path begins from Shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. And the natural consequences of hearing such Harikatha is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics for which a devotee has no taste at all. So this Kaivalya Patha, it has the aspect of Harikatha, And that Hari Katha causes Guneshu Asangaha, freedom from detachment from all the modes, and Atma Prasad, and also the joy, the inner joy of bhakti. So the whole glorification is of bhakti path in this sense, as per Srila Jiva Goswami, like that. He is explaining that effect. This state of affairs is described as Prati Nivrutta Gunormi, and it is possible by Atma Prasad, or complete self-satisfaction without any material connection. The first class devotee of the Lord attends this stage by devotional service. So in this case, Atma Prasad and all these aspects are being talked about. Bhakti only. Bhakti has these aspects. This is how he's explaining. First class devotee of the Lord attends this stage by devotional service, but despite his loftiness, for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory and dovetail into devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. So although a devotee becomes free from these modes and he becomes Atma Prasad, Atmaram, lekin does he stay Atmaram? No, he is saying that he takes to the aspect of preaching. So he, although bhakti may make him completely Atmaram, fully self-satisfied, but he doesn't remain self-satisfied in the sense that he takes the aspect of preaching and he wants to share the knowledge with others so that others also can come to the Lord's lotus feet, like that. Usually Atmaram aspect is taken for those who are self-satisfied. So will they take efforts for preaching and all? Will they? They won't. Like that. Even in that famous verse, right? Etan nirvidyamananam ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nirpanirnitam harer namanu kirtanam. There the yogis are translated as Atmaram, like that. Bhaktas are what? Nirvidyamananam. And those who want all the goals, they are Ichchatam, right? So yogis there are Atma Ramas. Yogis are not bhaktas there. Why? Because Atma Ram is satisfied with them. They don't need anything. They don't need to preach also. They don't want to preach also. But here Prabhupada is saying, Atma Prasad, even though devotees may also have complete self-satisfaction, but then they take the trouble. That is, they take the trouble to go out and preach and bring people to the devotional service, like that. So that is his point. Okay. So in this way, this particular section has talked about how bhakti is the desired goal of whether it is demigod worship or whether it is jnana, like that. Now, by all this talk, Shaunak Rishi, he becomes very pleased and he appreciates, now inspires Sud Goswami to speak further by speaking all these further verses. So just before that, do you wish to ask anything on this section? Anyone? Ramawalla Prabhu, you have a question? Okay. So yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
here we are saying that bhakti is the goal of demigod worship and even those are impulse things. But here, we see normally those are demigod worship. For them to give up demigod worship is very, very difficult. Whole life somebody has worship. So then how they come directly to devotional service?
I couldn't understand the last one or two lines. How they are?
How they come to devotional service? Because their whole life they have come to the demigod worship. And normal Krishna says, those who worship demigod, they go demigod.
Yeah. So those who are worshipping demigods, they will not come to devotional service. They will not come. They will come only by one condition. What is that? Yad Bhagavat Sangatah. See that verse 12's last line is putting that qualifier. Yes, it is true that those who are worshipping demigods, they will not come just like that. They will worship demigods, go to heavens, enjoy, come back, again worship. go on and on and on, this process like that. So the processes are not necessarily giving a progression in itself. We discussed this point before also, right? So it will happen only if they come in touch with some devotee, and then by that devotee's devotional service, they are inspired to take to the path of bhakti. Otherwise, these processes are, they have their specific goals, and one will be caught up in that goal only, like that. So that is the point. In the in path of jnana also, he may practice jnana until the time he is going to achieve a perfection of jnana. There is possibility that he may come in touch with devotee, and his path may change to bhakti. But if it doesn't happen, and then if the person accomplishes the goal of jnana, which is sayujya or like that, then where is the question of coming to bhakti or like that? That's it, done. So same way with demigod worship. If somebody takes to demigod worship and then goes on, or he goes, does some jyotishtom and goes to heaven, comes back, and then he has those samskaras already, then again he takes up, and then again he goes. So it continues like that, on and on and on. So when we say that these processes are supposed, their goal is Bhagavati Achalo Bhavo. So the goal is in this way only, that if by dint of this processes, he somehow or other comes in touch with the devotees, because he has accepted the path of Vedas, he has accepted the path of spiritual life. If he comes in association of devotees, then it will be accomplished. Otherwise, it cannot be accomplished. Okay? Yes, you had something.
Yes, sir. Because in many places in Prabhupada purports, we hear this as statements that bhakti is very easy to perform. And in some places, like recently I was reading 7.3 Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes that unauthorized practice of bhakti may appear simple, but when practiced according to the rules and regulations, it is very difficult.
Yeah.
And those who follow jnana and other processes, they should not think that bhakti is easy, it is difficult. So, Prabhuji, what makes that aspect of bhakti difficult? Is it like you're mentioning the goal of bhakti, to make that goal only is difficult? Or because functionality wise, it looks easy, like in Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam verse, Prabhupada writes it's very simple, just offer fruit.
Yeah.
So functionality wise, it looks very simple. So what is that which makes it difficult? Is it the goal? Like this Jnanis and Yogis are not able to make the goal only. So making that goal is difficult, or what is difficult?
Okay, yes. Okay, so actually in bhakti, what is difficult is that in bhakti, one has to submit oneself as a humble servant of Supreme Lord. So in other processes, the identity of a person in terms of, he is big, he is somebody, he can accomplish like that. Those identities are still maintained in other paths. Even in the path of jnana, where he is not identifying with the body, but there is no feeling like he is a humble servant or anything like that. No, he is in fact non-different than Brahman, So that feeling which is there in bhakti, where one has to completely be detached from any kind of sense gratification, whether it is selfish or extended. And completely be there for pleasing the Supreme Lord. So that aspect is very, very special in bhakti, where one is not interested even in moksha. See, because even in path of jnana or yoga, which is you may be completely disinterested in material world, but still you are interested in the moksha aspect, which is a very great goal, and one can delight in that particular goal. But in bhakti, one should not be interested even in that. He should be interested completely in Lord's pleasure only. So this aspect of bhakti, Jiva Goswami also says that this complete paravashta, complete subservience to the Supreme Lord's will, this aspect can make bhakti a little tough. It is not that easy that way. But of course, if one takes by the proper process in association, the sadhana aspect of bhakti is very easy to perform, but one has to be able to make that big impact change in one's mentality. If one is extremely desirous of sense gratification, or if one is too much bound with his own self-consciousness and all, so for him to have that paravashta is little difficult for such a person. So in that context, bhakti sometimes is said to be difficult. Prabhupada says process is easy, but the application is difficult, like that. So process is very easy, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. But when you apply it, start applying it, doing everything, especially in Uttama Bhakti, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, where something like mukti's desire is also rejected. So that's how the bhakti can become a challenge in that particular sense, because it is not allowing any ego. Process of jnana and yoga can still allow some ego in you. Although they're also clear, they're not the body, but still the conception itself is like that. No, I'm non-different than Supreme Brahman, that way. But in bhakti, one has to be completely staying there, living there for Supreme Lord's pleasure. So this kind of attitude to develop, it may take some effort. It's clear that. Okay. So yes, Prabhu.
In demigod worship, we were mentioning that association of devotee is necessary in order for them to come to the path of bhakti. So is it that only pure devotees are required? And
No, not necessarily. Any bhakta. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti's Siddhanta is that the bhakti is given by Madhyamadhikari only. So Madhyamadhikari is the cause of bhakti. He says that in beginning of Madhurya Kadambini very clearly. So Madhyamadhikari means what? He is the level of Nishtha. He is not a pure devotee. Or some Uttam Adhikari acts as Madhyama, then you can say, okay, he is a Premi Bhakta. But usually Madhyamadhikari meaning would be considered at Nishtha level. So he can become the cause. Or anybody who is acting, Prabhupada would say, anybody who is acting on the behalf of Madhyamadhikari, such a person who is sharing Krishna consciousness, connecting him to the process, connecting him to the pure devotee. So he would become instrument in giving bhakti in his life.
And then in case of demigods also, they are also considered to be devotees,
Yeah.
or like worshippers of Shiva. And Shiva is a pure devotee. So then how we understand in that way? Because they get the association of pure devotees also, or even in general other devotees like
Yeah.
demigods.
Correct. Yes, but that's what, as far as demigods are concerned, the way Lord has designed that who gets bhakti is not through demigods. His system is through pure devotees. And especially pure devotees meaning especially through the sampradayas. So now this topic is there in Bhakti Sandarbha. I am teaching in Bhakti Vaibhav also, another batch. So that is how I can remember this topic very clearly. There is this verse, right? Sattvam rajas tama iti prakriter gunaste, from the first canto, second chapter, verse number 23. So in that context, Srila Jiva Goswami writes in Paramatma Sandarbha that can Brahmaji or can Shiva lead somebody to the path of pure devotional service? He raises that question. Can they do that? So he says that these two personalities, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, if the follower worships them with a very pure desire, so then in some occasional cases, they may direct this person to the path of bhakti, like that. But he says it's very rare that the followers of these particular demigods usually have such a pure desire. Because they read the descriptions within the Shastra, what Lord Shiva can give, what Lord Brahma can give. So usually they approach these personalities like Lord Shiva or Brahma and all with some fruitive motives only. So if they have a very, very pure motivation with which they approach, they say to Lord Shiva, please give me whatever is most dear to your heart, and like that, then we see some the exceptional cases are there, right? Where Lord Shiva directed, or Chandi directed, Chandidas, or even Narsimha Mehta, and some examples where they were directed to pure devotional service. But as per Srila Jiva Goswami, that is not the main way, that is not the main function for which these personalities are there. Although they are pure devotees, they are also as administrators of this world. And that's how they have a specific function, a specific sort of offerings that they make to the people. So somebody can say, oh, I can worship Brahmaji for getting pure devotional service. Oh, you can, no problem. But the path is what? Path is the path of 4 sampradayas. You go to the pure devotees, acharyas, that's where you get the devotional service. If you want to worship Brahma for getting the aspect of pure devotional service, so you can do so if you accept him as the Pravartak, the founder of Brahma Sampradaya, and then take the aspect of Shravanam, Kirtanam and all that. But if you take Brahmaji's Rajasic worship aspect, and by that you want to say that I will get Brahmaji's mercy and become a pure devotee, that is not possible. So what I'm trying to say is, understand this point is that these personalities like Brahma, personalities like Lord Shiva, they have dual roles. Although they are preaching pure devotional service, they are the founders of certain sampradaya, but they are also universal demigods. So they have different descriptions in which they can be worshipped and they can be approached in Shastra. And mostly reading those descriptions, only people approach them. So that is how they will worship them. And that is what then they will get in return also. If somebody worships them as, oh, he is the founder of Brahma Sampradaya, Brahma, and then let me worship him and seek his mercy by following Shravanam, Kirtanam and all that, then it's fine. Then no problem. But usually their worshippers are not like this. If you see Shivji's worshippers or Brahma's worshippers, very rarely somebody is that pure and he can worship. And only if that kind of pure motivation is there, then Srila Jiva Goswami says they may be directed to Supreme Lord for practicing devotional service that way. That's the point, like that. Okay, so same with other demigods also. In fact, he is just distinguishing these two. He's not even talking like this for Agni and all that, meaning probably that is just that's just an impossibility, somebody going to them like that. Because Brahma and Shiva, if you worship them as Paramatma's Amsha, there is description in Shastra that one can get mukti by them. Worshipping Brahma as Amsha of Paramatma and not as independent demigod gives, that is what is called as Hiranyagarbha Upasana. Usko to Hiranyagarbha Upasak bolte. And worshipping Lord Shiva as Paramatma's Amsha. So that in that particular case, Lord Shiva and Brahma can offer one the mukti, especially Sayujya mukti is what is talked about, like that. But this particular talk is not done for others at all, meaning other demigods and all. It's not even spoken about them. These two personalities spoken because they are Gunavatar, they are special, they are considered non-different than Supreme Lord in a way. So that is the point, Prabhu. Clear? Okay. Anything else? Move on. Okay. Text 13. Shaunaka ityabhivyaratam raja nishamya bharatarshava kimanyat prashtavan bhuyo vayyasaki mrishim kavim.
Saunaka said, the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Sukdev Goswami was a highly learned sage and was able to describe things in a poetic manner. What did Maharaj Parikshit again inquire from him after hearing all that he had said?
Yes. So this verse, Shaunaka is continuing. Shaunaka and Sud Goswami's assembly. So in this way, iti abhivyaratam. So you see, Prabhupada is also translating all that was spoken. Hearing all this which was spoken by Parikshit Goswami, Kim Anyat Prishtavan, what other things did he ask? Meaning whatever he asked, is that answered or not? When you have to say what other things did he ask, meaning whatever he has asked is answered already. That's why he's saying Kim Anyat Prishtavan. Bhuyo, again. So what was that he asked again? To whom? To Vayyasaki. to Vyasadev's son, Vayasaki, who is said to be Rishim and Kavim, who is said to be Rishi and a Kavi, like that. So, this is the point. Prabhupada points out in purport that these 26 qualities of a Vaishnava, so in that especially the aspect of Kavi has been pointed out here, right? The qualification of being poetic is especially mentioned here in relation to Shukadev. The presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam by his recitation is the highest poetic contribution. He was a self-realized learned sage. In other words, he was a poet amongst the sages. Like that. So see, these two words are there, no? Rishi and Kavi. Srila Sridhar Swami is saying significance of these words, which is what Prabhupada is commenting on basically. Yeah. So here Sridhar Swami says this, Rishim Parabrahma Darshinam Kavim Shabda Brahma Nishnatam. देखिए ऋषि से what is being showed is that he was Parabrahma Darshinam. He was one who was seeing the Supreme Lord directly. Parabrahma. He was a self-realized soul. He was on the platform of self-realization, and he was the one who could see the Supreme Lord constantly. And Kavi means not only that, he was also Shabda Brahma Nishnatam. He was extremely qualified in terms of description of that Supreme Lord on the basis of Vedas. In the 6th canto, Lord Sankarsana is speaking, in which he says that there are two forms of mine in this world, which are eternal forms. One is Shabda Brahma, another is Parabrahma. Shabda Brahma, Parabrahma, Ubhe me Shashwati Tanu, he says that. My two forms in this world, Shabda Brahma and Parabrahma. So Parabrahma is the Satchidanand form of the Lord, and Shabda Brahma is the Vedas. So these two are considered the eternal Tanu, eternal bodies of the Supreme Lord, forms of the Supreme Lord, especially in the material world. So he was expert in both these aspects, Parabrahma also and Shabda Brahma also. See, sometimes somebody may be completely self-realized soul, but by Lord's wish, he may not have that service of offering the explanation of Shabda Brahma, like that. You understand this? So this person is also Shabda Brahma Nishnadam. And somebody may be expert in Shabda Brahma, but he may not be expert in Parabrahma, meaning he's not a very deeply realized person. He has some theoretical knowledge of Shastras, like that. But here he was perfectly self-realized and was also perfectly knowledgeable of all the truths of the Shastras. So that is his special qualification. Rishim and Kavim, Parabrahma Darshan, and also Shabda Brahma Nishnad, expert in explanation of all the Vedic aspects and all, this way. So that is the point, right? So that complete knowledge of Shastra, that particular aspect of an Uttam Adhikari, sometimes may not be manifest necessarily. But in this Shukdev Goswami's case, both the aspects are manifested. He is also perfectly realized. He has great love for the Supreme Lord. And he is also perfectly knowledgeable. He can very, very fine conclusions of Shastras, he can give very, very clearly this way. So that is how he said Kavim and Rishim, both the aspects are covered over here. Okay, text 14. Etat shushrushatam vidvan sutanor-hasi bhashitum katha hari kathodarka satam syu sadasi dhruvam.
O learned Sud Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in the discussion of the Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees.
Yes. So that's why, oh Sud Goswami, you please continue speaking these topics to us. Etat shushrushatam vidvan. We are very eager to hear. And that's why you please speak. You deserve to speak these topics to us because we are eager to hear and we want to know more. Katha Hari Kathodarka Satam Syu Sadasi Dhruvam. In fact, what else goes on in the assembly of Vaishnavas, he is saying. If we don't discuss Krishna Katha, then what we will do? In the assembly of Vaishnavas, this is what goes on. Katha Hari Kathodarka, like that. Meaning what? Hari Katha hi jinka udarka hai. Hari Katha is basically Hari Kathodarka means that Lord Hari is the udarka. Lord Hari is the phala. He is the result of the topic. He is the fruit of all that topic of the many different topics in the assembly of Vaishnavas. So this would also mean sometimes some topics like Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, they are discussed also. But Hari Katho Darka, meaning Uttara Phala. After these topics are discussed, the Uttara Phala is what? Hari only. That's the meaning of this word, Hari Katho Darka. See, Srila Sridhar Swami says, Hari Katha eva udarka, uttar phalam yasuta katha. Although they may appear like, what is being discussed, Mahattattva and this and all these technicalities and all that. Where is the Lord in this? But actually, Hari Katha eva udarka. The fruit of all these activities, the discussions, even on topic like Sarga, Visarga and all that is Hari only. It will be connected. It will come forth. It is not like some other topics where there is no connection only to the Supreme Lord. So glory of Lord will come out. Aishwarya Jnana will come out this way. See, Vishwanath Chakravarti says here. That is why. Nacha. Here. Nacha. Sarga Visarga Manvantar Nana Rajadi Kathanam Api Tad Anya Katha Vacham Ityaha. So that is why the topics of Sarga, Visarga, Manvantar or Ishanu Katha, they should not be considered to be some other topics. Why this is being discussed like that? No, in Bhagavatam especially, if you will see these topics, they will always connect to the Supreme Lord. They will very much glorify the Supreme Lord. And so much of sthanam, planetary systems is being spoken, but in between always prayers are coming. And in those prayers, the glorification of Supreme Lord is there, isn't it? And that is very different depiction than in other Puranas. Other Mahapurana also discuss Sarga, Visarga and all that. But if you see that kind of prayers and all that, they don't come much. It's just a plain description of topic, oftentimes that way. But in Bhagavatam, this Sarga, Visarga and all such topics also will be connected to the Supreme Lord. Glory of Supreme Lord will come in some way or other. It will be connected. As such, any topic can be connected. But what I'm saying is, in Bhagavatam, it will be quite direct connection. It will be spoken in a context in such a way that it will be very much glorifying the Supreme Lord. So one of the ways in which that is done, Jiva Goswami says, is that when these topics are going on, frequently the glory of the Lord will come in that. It will say, so such is the glorious Lord who by his glance, he impregnated the Prakriti. So just see his glory that way. Again and again, those topics will connect to the Supreme Lord this way. It will not be just a plain description going on this way. So that is Hari Katha. What is that? Hari Katho Darka. These kathas, although these are topics apart from Ashraya also, 9 other topics, but they are Hari Katho Darka. The Uttara Phala, the connection with the Supreme Lord's glorification will be quite prominent. It cannot be missed, even if that topic is discussing technical aspects and all that this way. So that is why also to make a complete presentation of Sarga or Visarga or Sthanam based on Bhagavatam is sometimes, it's not a foolproof thing, because there the topic is discussed in some good details, but it's not that it is discussing the entire topic to its nitty-gritties without going into any other details and with the proper progression and all. No, not necessarily. If you have to explain a topic like Sthanam, that's why you have to take the help of other topics, other scriptures, other places, Surya Siddhant and all that. If you want to make a complete case based on Bhagavatam, of sthanam, it may not be sufficient. Same with sarga, same with visarga. Great details are spoken, but primarily they are spoken to glorify Supreme Lord. So you have to also take Brahma Samhita if you have to know sarga. Then the whole thing can start making a lot of sense in this way. So that is the speciality of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is Hari Kathodarka, like that. So this is what he is saying here. So Prabhupada in purport, he says that the glorification of Supreme Lord is transcendental, and that is why he says that these topics should be discussed in the assembly of Vaishnavas. So interestingly, he also says the Mahabharata is accepted as the fifth division of the Vedas after its four divisions, namely Sam, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. The less intelligent do not accept the Mahabharata as part of the Vedas, but great sages and authorities accept it as the fifth division of the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita is also part of Mahabharata, and it is full of the Lord's instruction for the less intelligent class of men. So what Prabhupada is saying that all these topics, they should be discussed in the assembly of Vaishnavas. So he says here, see, literatures like Mahabharata, Puranas, and similar other literatures, which are full of the pastimes of the Lord, are all transcendental literatures, and they should be discussed with full confidence in the society of great devotees. This way. So what is point? Sometimes these scriptures like Mahabharata, Puranas, because they are smritis. So because they are smritis, some of the scholars say, some of the followers of Shankaracharya say that these are not authoritative because these are smritis. So Prabhupada is addressing that idea. It's not like that. Although these are smritis, but these are not different than smritis because they are considered Pancham Veda. This is the subject matter of Tattva Sandarbha also, that how all these Puranas and all that, they are not considered less authoritative at all. In fact, Bhagavatam is considered highest Praman. So even in terms of scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavatam is of course there, but even in Ramayana, Mahabharata, so they can be discussed amongst the devotees. But the point is, Vishwanath Chakravarti says that our Praman, highest Praman is Bhagavatam. So if we have to discuss these scriptures also, they are discussed in the light of the Bhagavatam, and they are discussed with, if they are matching with the conclusions of Bhagavatam. So that is the sort of hitch over there, that if somebody takes Mahabharata and starts bringing up conclusions which are completely opposed to devotional service, or which are sort of away from devotional service, so that's not an authentic presentation of Mahabharata. So Vishwanath Chakravarti does say that these scriptures can be discussed, but they have to be discussed in the light of the Bhagavatam, in that particular manner. So considering Bhagavatam, sometimes Bhagavatam does have some interesting perspectives on like things like Pandava's disappearance, or for that matter, Lord Krishna's disappearance, or like that. So those are the versions which are considered central. And that's how the Mahabharata can be understood. Or if there is some explanation of Mahabharata in terms of pure devotional service, so those could be accepted also, like that. But otherwise, taking these scriptures and completely explaining it in a different context, in a context which is taking one away from devotional service, that could sometimes prove a little misleading and also confusing. So Prabhupada is saying that these can be discussed, especially when we are clear with the Siddhantic aspects of our Sampradaya. This way. So further, Prabhupada. Men have inclinations for studying history books and many other mundane literatures, stories, fiction, dramas, etc. So let such inclinations be doubted with the transcendental service of the Lord, and all men will turn to the topics relished by the devotees. So Prabhupada speaks this many places. Nayatra vachaschitra padam harer yasho, and even in such verses, that people have a lot of inclination for reading, or these days not even reading, these days seeing videos, YouTube. Not many people are reading also. But the point is, yes, so let us create materials by which people can, relish or come to this spiritual subject matter. So that's why Prabhupada encouraged devotees to write books and, produce the content by which people can be drawn to Krishna consciousness. So this is what Prabhupada is saying over here also. Okay. Yes, text 15. Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Bala Kridana Kai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade.
Maharaj Parikshit,
Yes.
Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity.
So he spoke about Satam Sadasi, right? He said that in such assemblies of the devotees, what goes on is the bhakti. What goes on is the Krishna Katha. So he wants to say in the next verse that amidst all such assemblies, the assembly where Parikshit was the Shrota and Shukdev was Vakta is the best. That's why he's speaking these verses, next two verses. Amidst the assembly of Vaishnavas, Bhagavat is what goes on. And which was that best assembly? Well, the best assembly was of Parikshit. And he glorifies Parikshit in this verse. And next verse, he glorifies Shukdev. Savai Bhagavato Raja.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna. Savai
Krishna,
Prabhu, we will take question later. I want to complete till verse 19, then we can take question. Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha. So he is glorifying this Parikshit Maharaj, that he was the descendant of the Pandavas, grandson of the Pandavas, and he was a Maharathi. But what was his special qualification? He was Bhagavat. He was a Paramhams Vaishnava. Even as a child, when he played with his dolls and imitated pastimes of Krishna along with his sakhas. Bala Kridana Kai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade. So that was Parikshit, who used to worship imitate the worship of the deity Krishna, or even in his play sports, he would many times mimic the pastimes of the Supreme Lord along with his cowherd boyfriends, like that. So that was Parikshit. His greatness in terms of bhakti is being spoken over here. So Prabhupada in purport, he brings up his own life also. Usually whenever such topics come, Prabhupada also speaks that how he was very fortunate because of his father, and because of that background, since childhood only he had that opportunity to practice bhakti. So he says, by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna, we had the chance of being born in a Vaishnava family. And in our childhood, we imitated the worship of Lord Krishna by imitating our father. So Prabhupada says that by his father, since childhood only, he was introduced to bhakti. And then when he met his spiritual master, that particular interest became extremely strengthened, unflinching. He got complete knowledge about the aspect of bhakti, and the faith and the worship became unflinching. So Prabhupada says that like that. Also, our spiritual master, who also took his birth in a Vaishnava family, got all inspirations from his great Vaishnava father. That is the way of all lucky Vaishnava families. He writes, a lucky Vaishnava family. Like that. The celebrated Mirabai was a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna as the great lifter of Govardhan Hill. So he's also glorifying Mirabai because she was also a staunch devotee right from her childhood. So later he says, such devotees can be Nitya Siddhas or Sadhan Siddhas. There is no difference between the two in the ultimate issue. And so the conclusion is that everyone can become a Sadhan Siddha, a devotee of the Lord, simply by association with the pure devotees. So the point is that in this way, these Mahabhagavats, they are usually Nitya Siddhas. Or Prabhupada is saying that If they are not Nitya Siddhas, they come in association of Vaishnavas and then they become Sadhan Siddhas. So in either case, the point is that the glory of these devotees has been mentioned. Just like Narad Muni, he's a Nitya Siddha. But for example's sake, his whole aspect of maid servant, he being born as a son of maid servant and practicing Vaidhi Bhakti is only for the sake of showing an example of Vaidhi Bhakti. But he is a Nitya Siddha Bhakta. Srila Jiva Goswami says this point. So even in that verse, Gopya Kama Bhayad Kamso, Dveshat Chaidyadayo Nrupa, Snehad Yuyam, and what is that? Sambandhad Vrishnaya Bhaktya Vayam Vibho. He says that. So in that, Narad Muni is put in the category of sadhan bhakti. So that is, Jiva Goswami says, only for the sake of showing an example. He is not an example of sadhan bhakti. But if you see his life right from the moment where he is born as son of a maid servant, and that particular life is showing the principle of sadhan bhakti, Vaidhi sadhan bhakti. But otherwise, he is a Nitya Siddha Bhakta, like that. That is what is the opinion of Srila Jiva Goswami on there. So he says Narad Muni is putting there himself in the category of Vaidhi sadhan bhakti just for the sake of humility, like that. Otherwise, he is also considered a Raganuga Bhakta. He is also Raganuga. So this way. So anyway, my point was that Nitya Siddha or Sadhan Siddha, but these are the unique examples of devotees right from childhood. So Parikshit was also like that. Parikshit saw the Supreme Lord right in the womb of the mother, and then he was always, a pure devotee, Mahabhagavat of Supreme Lord. So Mahabhagavat devotee of the Supreme Lord. So he used to imitate the activities of Lord Krishna's pastimes, and thus always, remembered Supreme Lord. Of course, he met also Supreme Lord. Sometimes we have that question, right? Whether Parikshit, after his appearance, meaning seeing the Lord in the womb, did he meet? So Mahabharata does say he met many times Lord Krishna, because after Parikshit's appearance also, Lord Shri Krishna was there on the planet for 36 years. So it's quite unlikely that Parikshit wouldn't meet the Supreme Lord, isn't it? So in the childhood only, when he got the consciousness, meaning he started understanding things, that was the time when he used to search for that person whom he saw in the womb. So once he understood that that is Lord Krishna, so that pariksha stopped. Then after that, because he knows now this is the Supreme Lord, like that. So why would he search? Is this the person? Is this the person? Is this the? That was only in the childhood, like that. Once he realized that this is Supreme Lord, so that's it. Then he knows this way. So this is spoken in Mahabharata. Okay, text 16. So just as Parikshit is glorified, now Shukdev will be glorified. Vayasakishcha Bhagavan Vasudeva Parayanaha Urugaya Gunodara Satam Syurhi Samagame. Yes.
Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, was also full in transcendental knowledge and was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, son of Vasudeva. So there must have been discussion of Lord Krishna, who is glorified by great philosophers and in the company of great devotees.
So just as Parikshit was like that, it is said, Cha and Vayasaki Bhagavan Vasudeva Paraya. Cha here is there, right? So just as Parikshit was like that, also Vayasaki, Shukdev was Vasudeva Paraya. Meaning both of them were having actually that quality of being Mahabhagavat Paramhams right from the beginning. That is what is spoken. So both of them were most qualified, Uttam Vakta and Uttam Shrota, this way. Just as Parikshit was devotee of Lord Krishna, Vayasaki also was devotee of Vasudeva, meaning Supreme Lord Krishna, like that. So that's why such glories of Supreme Lord, Urugaya Gunodara. Urugaya is the Supreme Lord, one whose glorification is done with a great delight, great pomp, and that is Urugaya. Urugiyate iti Uruga, like that. Urugaya, meaning his glorifications are sung throughout, everywhere. So that is what should be happening in the assembly of Vaishnavas. So please don't stop. Please continue. Please go on. although Shukdev Goswami has already answered the questions. So that's why, okay, done. This is it. No, not like that. He must have asked many other things. Parikshit must have asked many other things. And we just want that you go on speaking. We don't want that you continue this Krishna Katha. So with that eagerness, he is basically speaking this particular point like that. So Prabhupada also says this. Prabhupada draws out a very nice comparison between Parikshit and Shukadev. As already described, Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee of the Lord from his very birth, and so was Shukadev Goswami. Both of them were on the same level, although it appeared that Maharaj Parikshit was a great king accustomed to royal facilities, whereas Shukadev Goswami was a typical renouncer of the world, so much so that he did not even put a cloth on his body. Superficially, Maharaj Parikshit and Shukdev Goswami might seem to be opposites, but basically they were both unalloyed pure devotees of the Lord. So both of them have that substance, that quality of being a Mahabhagavat. This is the point of this particular verse, like that. Okay. So now here onwards, a different topic in terms of the Bhakti is the only abhideya comes. So I just wish to see if there is anything to be asked. Yeah. So our Lalit Madhav Prabhu, you had some question, Prabhu, right? Was it Lalit Madhav Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. What?
Prabhuji, always even there is a description of our circle or creation. Still there is always some prayers are there of glorification to the Lord. So there's always Bhagavatam is full of Krishna only. So sometimes you also see how Ante Madhye and everywhere.
Prabhu, actually sound is, your sound is reverberating. So because of that, little difficulty in understanding. It's not very clear.
1 minute.
Or maybe if you just wish to ask without mic, that is also okay.
Hare Krishna, you are able to hear me now? You are able to hear me?
Little better.
So I was asking the question about the Bhagavatam, how that there is a topic of creation, Sarga, Visarga. So in that also, Prabhuji, you are saying how there are glorification God prayers are there. So
हम खरीद लेंगे
thoughts
लेके जाएंगे
कौन है वो? Dashrath Priya Prabhu. Please keep yourself on mute, Haribol. Dashrath Priya Prabhu. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Please continue.
So Prabhuji, we also say how Bhagavatam in every word there is a Krishna is there. But we see sometimes there is a description of how like a description of Sarva is given. So in that some particular verse, we don't see as a Krishna there, but of course we can see in relation, we can see Krishna. So is it a way where we see Krishna in Bhagavatam, or but word to word also is Krishna?
Is able to understand. I am having Prabhu, I don't know, some issue is there with sound, actually very difficult to understand, not able to get, little bit I'm understanding, but not getting the, maybe can you type?
So can I ask from here now?
Okay, better.
Prabhuji, when we are talking about Bhagavatam, how every word there is a Krishna is there in Bhagavatam.
Yeah, okay.
And also we say how Sarga, Visarga, the creation, in between there is always glorification Lord is given.
Yes.
But sometimes we see the glory, sometimes description of Swarga Loka is given or some pastime. So, but of course it leads to the devotional service, pure devotion to Krishna. But so when we say that in every word there is a Krishna is there, so it is to that shloka itself, or it's because it's conclusion.
Conclusion. Yeah. It's in terms of conclusion. Yes, Prabhu. So you can, yes, you can see Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary on the verse Na yad vachas chitra padam haryad yasho. In this he is addressing this particular point. Exactly this point he is addressing. He's saying that is that in Bhagavatam each and every letter is about Krishna. So he says that basically that Nayad Vachas Chitra Padam Hare Yasho Jagat Pavitram. So he says if Daksha is glorifying path of Karma Kand, should that be considered Vayasam Tirtham then in Bhagavatam? Because what he is glorifying? Is he glorifying pure devotional service or is he glorifying the Karma Kand? So he's glorifying the path of karma. So then will you call it as Tadvayasam Tirtham? It's a place of pilgrimage for the crows. So he says that, very nice there, that's why we don't talk about every verse of every, word of the verse speaking exclusively in its own context of pure devotional service. But he says, Tat katha prasanga eva uchate. You have to know that the import of that discussion is pure devotional service. Not necessarily every bit and piece of every verse is speaking about pure devotional service, but katha prasanga, the word exactly is the import of the story. The connection of the story is so much clear that it is bringing out Lord's glory only. This is not the case with other Puranas. The story of the Lord may be there, but even the Katha Prasanga is not glorifying pure devotional service. Import also will not be like that. That way, forget about the words. So although, as you are saying, every word speaks about bhakti, that is Sanatana Goswami. He only says that, right? What does he say? Paramananda Pathaya, Prema Varshi Aksharaya. Prema Varshi Aksharaya. Har ek akshar prem ki varsha karta hai. This is the specific reference. Every word of Bhagavatam is raining every syllable of Bhagavatam is raining the love of Godhead. He is saying that is how he has glorified Bhagavatam. But then if it is like that, then you just read the section of any section where some karma is glorified or mukti is glorified or like that. So what does it mean? So that's why Vishwanath Chakravarti says that we have to know by that the import of that katha. If you rip out that verse out of the context and just take that particular verse, so it would mean a plain glorification of mukti or plain glorification of karma. That is also very rare in Bhagavatam. But if it is there, then what do you do? So that's why he says that katha prasanga should be seen. And that is why such sections of Bhagavatam should or don't see them as Vayasam Tirtham or like that. Meaning nobody can criticize in that way, saying, oh, in Bhagavatam also this is there, that way. So it's clear, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
About Narad Muni, his previous life, he was Upabarhana,
Yeah,
the Gandharva. So how do we understand him to be Nitya Siddha?
yeah.
Means, could you clarify?
Correct. So if you see Narad Muni, Srila Jiva Goswami says that the whole story, Narad Muni is a resident of Vaikuntha, he says. He's a resident, he is Narayana's pure devotee. Like that. So whole aspect of him coming as Upabarhana and then he stays till the end of Brahmaji's lifespan is, he says, that is just Prakat Leela that he has done. Otherwise, Narad Muni is a resident of Vaikuntha. That is what he says in Bhakti Sandarbha. Okay. So aspect of Upabarhana and then further the son of maid servant and all, that is showing the progression of bhakti aspect. Like, okay. You have something? Yes, Prabhu.
So as you said that these topics lead to Harikatha.
Yeah.
So when we read certain verses of Bhagavatam and even the purport of Prabhupada, it may not directly, like sometimes it may be discussion on ideal husband-wife. So something is like not really leading to the conclusion immediately. So because the Bhagavatam, like here it's saying in the assembly of devotees, we should discuss because Hari Katha Udarka. So then should the Bhagavatam have that lead clear in every lecture. Like every lecture should have the ending point with that Harikatha.
Okay, yeah, well, yes, good question. Yes, so if Bhagavatam is Hari Katho Darka, then we make sure also that our presentation is Hari Katho Darka, right? Yes, so that is true only. I mean, personally, as per my understanding, I would say, yes, that is how the Bhagavatam's presentation should be. But when the presentation on any topic is there, your audience will also determine the kind of presentation that you would make, right? Suppose the audience is audience which is learned, serious practitioners of bhakti who have read Bhagavatam, who have been reading Bhagavatam for quite a long time. So then you take a context, you take a text. So in that text, you also explain the technical aspect of the text. But because anything that is mentioned in Bhagavatam has to have the Katha Prasanga of glorification of Supreme Lord. So one also has to connect it to the Supreme Lord's glory. It is needed actually. It is very much needed. So when we see Acharyas also, so they explain the text very nicely. They explain the context also very nicely. And then finally, they will explain the aspect of application, especially like Prabhupada. He always emphasized that particular point. So in a traditional setting of Bhagavatam, because the audience was also very high caliber and they understood that, okay, so this discussion is leading towards this particular aspect of Bhakti, Supreme Lord. But if we see that in the audience, we have to explicitly bring up that particular thing, then we should bring it up. That is what I would say. So depending on the level of the audience, if we see that the audience is greatly learned in Bhagavatam and they understand the overall context of Bhagavatam and all that, we may do that in little less proportion and give a technical understanding of Bhagavatam so that those who are looking for in-depth understanding, they are also satisfied. But then not touching that pure devotional service aspect at all, that would not serve the purpose that way. So I would also say that it depends on the audience, especially certain audience whom you give all technicalities of the verse, but at the end of the text, they never understood how to apply it in their life. So it's also a failure in that case. Then they have to know there has to be a takeaway in terms of bhakti like that. So especially in teaching Bhagavatam, the technicalities are stressed because we go for a systematic kind of teaching.
Yes. So second question, like when we say Hari Katha Udarka, so there may be Hari Katha in other scriptures also. And now whether Hari, the Lord's presence purifies or pure devotional service context purifies. I'm saying, like, say someone may take from another scripture some pastime, and there's nothing to do with pure, like even Ramayana. When people read Ramayana, many times people take family issue. So, and they stay at family issue only, but they develop attachment to Lord Ram in one sense. But they may remain mundane people only. So what exactly means, are you getting, like, Hari Katha Udarka, they may never come to the pure devotional service context only.
Correct.
That may be in one corner somewhere.
Yes, yes. So in presentation of scriptures, that is why, as even Vishwanath Chakravarti's advice is there, that scriptures like Mahabharata, for that matter, even they have to be explained in a way that they conform with the Siddhanta of Bhagavatam. So if somebody is presenting scriptures like Ramayana or Mahabharata or any other scriptures, and if that particular presentation is only keeping to some social level or moral level or like that, although it is understood that, okay, people, what level they are, and you want to offer them something which is relevant at that particular level, that point is understood. But the way our acharyas have spoken, the way, and all the more Prabhupada, how he has emphasized is any topic that we speak, see, there are so many people speaking on sub-religious principles. So it is our Sampradaya's legacy where we connect the topics if they're connected to the Bhagavatam, meaning they're connected to the pure devotional service aspect and all that, then that would only do a good justice. Now, one may give some practical guidance and some aspects of social life and all that, and that can be there for that level of audience. But if somebody misses completely on that point of pure devotional service, so in my opinion, that kind of presentation then is missing in that essential point. It has to be connected. That is how our acharyas have done. Even if they have taken something like Nyaya and Vaisheshika, such topics also they have connected to the finally the Supreme Lord. So what to speak of taking some pastime where there is connection of Supreme Lord and all that. So we shouldn't settle it on a very intermediate level. That is what I.
Just one last, Puji. Ramayana Mahabharata, like you said, in light of Bhagavatam. So has that work been done by some Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya also? Because even like I see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is categorically bringing out a difference between other sampradayas and our sampradaya.
Yeah.
And if other sampradayas speak on Ramayana Mahabharata also, they will have that kind of a context. Like they have emphasis on Varnashram,
Correct.
but we are saying Shavanam Kirtanam.
Right.
So then what happens if people are taking those commentaries and quoting it? It may look authentic because Veda is truth.
Yes.
So it is authentic, Acharya is speaking, but then our Gaudiya Vaishnava conclusion may be lost.
Correct.
And we don't know what exactly, whether that should be heard or not heard properly.
Absolutely. So yes, it is true. So as far as Ramayana is concerned, Ramayana, there is not much offered by Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, surely. Mahabharata, Srila Vishwan Chakravarti says that many of the episodes of Mahabharata, especially from, they can be connected to the first canto, or they can be connected to the 11th canto, they can be connected to the 10th canto. And based on that, certain explanations of Mahabharata, they can be done. Shripad Madhvacharya has written Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay, in which he also does this particular aspect. At 3 levels, he explains Mahabharata. One at the level of pure bhakti, another at the level of dharma, and third at the level of just plain moral teachings, and this way. So if somebody is interested in that particular manner, if somebody wants to take study of Mahabharata, so that can be done. But again, yes, it is a field which should be done very properly under proper guidance. One foremost thing is that one has to know our Siddhanta, our devotional principles very thoroughly before even thinking of getting into these things and all. Bhagavatam itself is sufficient, and Bhagavatam is accepted also as highest praman. So that is how in our Sampradaya there is not much discussion based on Mahabharata and nothing on Ramayana practically like that. So that much is enough that way. So these are some few indicators like Tatparya Nirnaya and all. But then when you get into it also, the other details of Siddhantic aspects that they come in, then it becomes another issue, like that. Like, if Balramji is less powerful than Bhima or something like that, will become, for us to reconcile it, will become another bigger issue, right? This way, like that. So that's why that thing is also, I would say that something which should be done by under expert guidance of some devotees, if they are there in the field and all that. And that too, if need is there. As far as we are concerned, we are focused on Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam itself is having so much that we don't have to get into all this. There might be some appropriate occasions where we want to take from these scriptures, festivals, occasions, and want to speak something, which is fine. But our Siddhantic aspect for that has to be very thorough. Otherwise, as you said, very much, we will end up in giving some sub-religious principles, karma mishra bhakti, varnashram, this, that, which is not pure devotional service at all. So dharma and all these aspects, no, we stand for Shuddha Bhakti. If somebody else belonging to other sampradaya, he is doing it, it's okay. But as those who coming in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, they have to have the responsibility of sharing pure devotional service. If they are speaking on scriptures, if they are not speaking on scriptures, they are just giving some general guidance and all, that is another thing. But If they're speaking based on scriptures, then yes, pure bhakti has that aspect. So that is my understanding. Whatever. Maybe Sundar Shamru, you want to add something? Okay, so now in this text 17 onwards, the rest of the verses, what is spoken is that how bhakti is only abhideya here. That which was spoken by Anvaya before is spoken now by Vyatirek. See, when you said akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena, all that, or bhagavatya chalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangatah. Bhakti, only bhakti is to be performed. Bhakti is the conclusion. So that particular aspect is being emphasized also by Shaunak by speaking in terms of Vyatirek, meaning somebody who doesn't perform bhakti, he is condemned. Somebody who doesn't hear Krishna Katha, his ears are condemned. Somebody who doesn't speak Krishna Katha, his words are condemned. So this is Vyatirek, like that, from the Vyatirek aspect. And how it is spoken is by Angi and Angas. The whole person is criticized, one who doesn't engage in bhakti, and his particular limbs are also criticized, those which don't engage in bhakti. Angi matlab kaun hota hai? The person to whom the senses belong. That is Angi, Amshi, like that, Angi. And Anga means the particular limb. So what he will do, first he will criticize an Angi, a person who doesn't engage in bhakti, and then he will criticize also particular Anga, 1111 Anga, like that. And then finally he will end with criticizing not only Anga, which is external limb, but also the inside limb, which is Hridaya. Right? Tadashmasaram Hridayam Batedam, like that. So till that time he is condemning the external limbs this way. So that is what is the rest of the thing. So he is glorifying bhakti. Bhakti ka hi gungan chal raha hai. Just that he is speaking this in terms of the Vyatirek. And by this he wants to express his appreciation for bhakti, express his eagerness and encourage all the more, make Sud Goswami more enthusiastic by speaking these words, so that he is all the more delighted to share Krishna consciousness. The discussion on bhakti, like that. So that is the point of this rest of the verses. Yeah, fine. So we go ahead. Just sharing the screen. Ayurharati vai pumsam udyannastan cha yannasau tasyarte yat kshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. Yes.
Both by rising, by sitting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of all good personality of Godhead.
So, please go on speaking. Don't stop. He wants to say that, because if you stop and if a moment is also lost in discussion other than bhakti, so that's such a colossal waste. So that is also the mood. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that he wants to say that do not stop. Please continue. Go on speaking this way. So. Na atra vilambah karya ityaha ayoriti. Please don't do any vilamba. Although you spoke about Shukdev Goswami answering all the questions of Parikshit. So we want that you continue, you go on and on speaking this. So please don't delay any further. Please tell us about the further topics of bhakti. So basically their great enthusiasm in continuing, hearing like that, this way. We have done so many sacrifices and we are already tired, like that. It's not like that. Say they used to perform sacrifices, and then in between time they were hearing Krishna Katha from Srila Sud Goswami. So beginning they were, meaning because that was 1,000-year-old sacrifice. So it was going on and on and on like that. But their transformation happened in terms of their mental state. When they began, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says that they had great faith in Karmakand. When they heard from Romharshan that aspect of Karmakand, great faith changed and they became Jigyasu. They developed Jigyasa for the spiritual topics. And when they heard from Suta Goswami, they developed great faith in Bhakti. And when Suta Goswami finished, then they became, all of them became the devotees of the Lord. So like that, it has progressed. Because it's the same 1,000-year-old sacrifice in which Romharshan also spoke. And then Suta Goswami was installed as a speaker. Then he went and learned from Shukdev, and then he came back and spoke. So all that. So point is that their transformation happened gradually. They became extremely purified. So that's why when at the time of hearing from Suta, very in the beginning itself, they say that this sacrifice is just blackening our faces, right? They say that in the, I think, 18th chapter, 18th or 19th first canto, that they say that, so we don't have, actually, this whole sacrifice is just blackening our faces, but what is coming out of your lotus mouth, Krishna Katha, that asavam, that they say that is what is nourishing us this way. But they had continued that sacrifice because that was ordained by Brahma, and that's why they just continued. So anyway, point here is Natra Vilambaha Karya, meaning they want to continuously hear about that Krishna Katha. So that's why with that angle, he is saying this. Ayur harati vai pumsam udyanastam chayannasau. So asau here means sun. Asau, this sun, what does it do? Ayur harati, it takes away the life. Whose life does it take away? Pumsam, it takes away the lives of the living beings, people. How does he take? Udyan astan, by every rising and setting, this asau, this sun, it takes away the duration of life of the people. Tasya rite, except for that person. Rite means without or except for that. Tasya rite, except for that person. Yatkshano nita uttama shloka vartaya, by whom the every moment of his life, or by whom the part of the duration of his life is uttama shloka vartaya, is engaged in the glorification of Lord, who is glorified by choice poetry. So one exception is being made, the exception that his life is not taken away. Whose life? One who is engaging in the glorification hearing of Sri Uttama Shlok, the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, asau, this sun is taking away everybody's life with every rising and setting. That is what is being spoken over here. So, Prabhupada also, time and tide wait for no man. So the time indicated by the sunrise and the sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. So Prabhupada is saying also this particular aspect, that time will not stop for anyone, and time and tide wait for none. Like that. There was this British king, Canute the Great. So he went and ordered the ocean, saying, stop, waves. He kicked and said, not kicked, but he stood there and said that, stop. So will the tide stop? It will not. He said, stop, because he was a great king, Canute the Great, but he was very God conscious. He was extremely God conscious. So then he was doing like this. So his minister said, what is going on? Why are you doing? So then he said, just see, I may be emperor of the entire British Empire, but then time and tide wait for none. So that's how that phrase is there in British English. Time and tide wait for none, no man, like that. So Prabhupada is saying that particular aspect. So point is, when we say this particular thing, that except for the one who is engaging in bhakti, everybody else's life is taken away. So does this mean that the devotee is not going to die, or his life is not going to be taken away? His life is also taken away. He is also leaving, meaning his life is also exhausting. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti gives a nice discussion in this regard, which Prabhupada also says, that he says, see, Prabhupada brings it up in the second para. If the money is given in charity to a non-Brahmana, the money is returned in the next life in the same proportion. If it is given in charity to a half-educated Brahmana, even the money is returned double. If the money is given in charity to a learned and fully qualified Brahmana, the money is returned 100 and 1,000 times. And if it is given to a Veda Paraga, it is returned by unlimited multiplication. So somebody is doing charity of money. So when that money is given, Prabhupada says, to an half-educated Brahmana, then money is returned double, but not immediately. When? In the next life. In the next life, it is said. It may come immediate also, but the verse says next life. Huh? So that's why when you say he gave this much money in charity, did he spend or he didn't spend? What would you say? He lost the money or he gained the money? Yeah. He invested the money. Yes. Huh? So that particular person, we will not say that he lost the money because he is going to get it back. Huh? He's going to get it back in terms of double or whatever, 100 and 1,000 times. Prabhupada says. Huh? That is a verse from Smriti. It is quoted by Vishwanath Chakravarti also. Like that. He says here, Samam abrahmane danam dvigunam brahmane bhavet adhite shata sahastram anantam veda parage. Huh? Samam abrahmane. If you give the dan to a Brahman, then you will get the equal amount of that wealth back. Dvigunam, if you give it to Brahmana, then you will get double back. Shata sahastram, hundreds and thousands of times, if that Brahman is very learned Brahman. And Veda parag, he knows the perfect conclusion of Vedas, then you get unlimited. This is Smriti. So if this is there for even a thing like money, even a thing like wealth, so Vishwanath Chakravarti says what to speak of? The life. One who has given the life for Krishna, hearing glorification of Krishna, serving Krishna, hearing his glorification. So we don't say that even this fellow who has given charity has lost the money. Even he has not lost the money. He is going to get it back double, hundreds and 1,000 times or whatever, hundreds times or equal amount of. So if you say that even by doing charity, he has not lost the money, then what to speak of hearing Krishna Katha and serving Krishna? How much great investment it is. There is absolutely no loss this way. So that is why he says that if somebody says that, oh, our devotee is not going to die. No, they will also be dying. But then point is, here this charity fellow also gets so much of money back in his next life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Lord Krishna, what he does, anybody who gives the time and energy for his service, he repays. How does he repay? Parshadatva praptya dhruvam akshayu. He says, see, there it was said that wealth will be doubled or 100 times. How does our Lord Krishna repay? He repays by making him associate in the spiritual world. He says that. That is Lord Krishna's repayment in terms of the time given, energy given by the devotee. This way. See, dhruvam akshayu bhavati, akshayayu bhavati. So he will give back that time which you invested in him in terms of giving you an eternal life, in terms of giving you a life where which is an eternal life, akshayayu, like that. So there is no comparison, in fact. And that is why it is said, except for the person who is utilizing time, everybody's life is going. Ayur harati. Kyunki iski nahi ja rahi hai na. Whatever time he is giving, for that he will get akshayayu. So where is the loss? That is his point. In this material world, obviously everybody is going to leave the body. But then the point is, it is not just one life that we are seeing. You see the journey towards the Supreme Lord. So that's why he is saying Krishna's payment in terms of your efforts to serve him is by offering you to become the associate of him in the spiritual world. So that is dhruvam, that is the fixed or the completely stable destination that he gives this way. So that is why this verse is saying that a devotee, his life is not taken away, because technically it's not taken away. Krishna is going to bestow all the benefits that utilization in service of him would be there. So Prabhupada also, he brings up this point. A moment passed in the association of a pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental messages of the Lord is a perfect guarantee for eternal life, for returning home back to Godhead. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is guaranteed eternal life. So that's the point. To the degree a devotee has developed love for the Supreme Lord, to that degree Krishna is going to guarantee eternal life, isn't it? That way. And even if there is something like jara, the old age or disease or like that, that is also to increase devotees' eagerness for the Supreme Lord. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that point usually always, that he says that anything that is coming in devotee's life is Ishwar Datta. He says once somebody accepts Lord Shri Krishna and Guru Padashray, he says after that whatever is coming in his life is given by the Supreme Lord. Let it be prarabdha, let it be aprarabdha, but now it is coming through Krishna. So that's why he says it is Ishwar Datta only. It should be accepted by given by Krishna only, that way. So he is no longer detached or disinterested in devotee now. He's going to give it through his own agency. So that way. Srila Jiva Goswami has a different point. He says that the prarabdha goes only at the level of prema. So I'll not get into that discussion. But there is also reconciliation that is done by devotees in terms of, even if he is offering the karma, but he is the one who is picking it up and offering. Lord Krishna is the one who is picking it up and offering. So that's why it is Ishwar Datta, this particular way, like that. So whatever, the point is this, that Shri Krishna is now personally interfering in his life, and he's also seeing the devotee's response. Especially personally, meaning I am saying that only at the bhav level, Krishna starts personal intervention. Personally meaning that I am saying that Krishna as a person, he starts intervening in devotee's life through spiritual master, through devotees, through all this. So that is not Lord Krishna's case in terms for the other people who are disinterested in him, non-devotees. He more or less leaves them under care of Maya. But for devotees, it's not like that. Even for sadhakas, he is the one who is very much personally looking at the devotee's needs. And at bhava level, he directly starts now. He himself starts intervening his life. And the devotee, he starts giving that devotee whatever, darshan. Darshan is obviously at prema, but at bhava level, he starts experiencing Krishna personally in terms of hearing his flute and hearing his ankle bells and getting a gandha of his body and all that. So that is what is there. But this is the point, that Krishna actually is giving a guarantee for the devotee, one who is investing time. So that's why Ayur Harati, other people's Ayu is going away, but a devotee's Ayu is not going away. That is why he's saying like that. Okay, one more verse and maybe we'll stop. Text 18. Taravaha kim na jivanti, bhastrah kim na shvasantyuta, na khadanti na mehanti, kim grame pashavo pare. Yes.
Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beasts not eat and discharge semen?
Yeah. So verse 17 spoke about Ayur Harati Vai Pumsam, like that. But Sridhar Swami says, somebody may say, Nanu Jivanam eva tesham ayushaha phalam. Are just living is their fruit of their life. You are saying their Ayu is going waste completely. With every rising and setting, the sun is taken away. But just living like that, that's the goal of their life. Let sun take away the life, no problem. But just living like that, whatever a number of years that he is living, that is only the goal of their life. फिर उसमें क्या problem है? If they just live like that, you are saying sun is with every rising and setting take away the life, no problem. But just living itself, are they living or not? They are living. So that living itself is perfection. So then in answer to that, this verse is saying, Arey, if you say just living is the goal of life, then taravaha kim na jivanti? And do the trees not live? Then what is the difference between these fellows and this? Do the trees not live? Arey, but trees, they don't breathe, no. These guys are breathing. Bhastra kim na shvasantyut? Do the bellows of blacksmith, they don't breathe like that? But bellows, they don't eat, or they don't have sex life, sexual intercourse. Na khadanti na mehanti kim grame pashavo pare. Oh, the animals in the village, grame pashavo, do they not eat khadanti, or do they not have mehanti, mehanam, like that? Kim grame pashavo, all these animals, or apare, or those beings which are human beings, but they are like pashus, like that. So he is saying, so what is the value of that? Just living is the value. So for even trees live so many years like that, but without any knowledge of self-realization, without any understanding of spiritual life. Okay, in some other context, we may glorify trees also. Paropkara, they do so much of paropkara. But he is speaking in terms of the aspect of living an enlightened living, self-realization. Trees are usually considered mandadhi. They are. So from that angle, this way. Okay. So that is why he is saying this particular verse. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he is also pointing out these things, which Prabhupada also has pointed out, like that. So Prabhupada in purport, the materialistic man of modern age will argue that life or part of it is never meant for discussion of theosophical or theological arguments. Life is meant for maximum duration of existence, for eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, making merry and enjoying life. So he is putting Sridhar Swami's argument that yes, they are living nicely. What is the problem? That way. But even trees live like that. He is then answering this way. Prabhupada, at Vrindavan, there is a tamarind tree. The place is known as Imlitala, which is said to have existed since the time of Lord Krishna. In Calcutta Botanical Garden, there is a banyan tree said to be older than 500 years. And which are those trees that in the Western world? Redwood trees. Yeah, redwood trees and all, right? They also have existed for thousands of years. There are many such trees all over the world. So what is the value? Especially in terms of an enlightened living, in terms of self-realization. Swami Shankaracharya lived only 32 years and Lord Chaitanya lived 48 years. Does it mean that the prolonged lives of above mentioned trees are more important than the life of Shankara or Chaitanya? Prolonged life without spiritual value is not important, very important, Prabhupada says. So Prabhupada then adds all these aspects like trees sometimes don't breathe. So do blacksmiths, bellows, do they not breathe? Like that he is answering further all the aspects this way. Okay, so some more verses are there tomorrow, maybe 4, 5, how many? 2 plus 5, 7 verses are there. So I might need around 45 minutes or so. So is there anything that you wish to ask today? We will stop here. This is of verses. Lalit Madhaprabhu, you have hand raised, that is from prior question or something else? Okay, so Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.